Hello everyone. Today we'll start with our chapter number 8 of NCERT, that is motion. So in this chapter, let's start with it. Now, what basically the term motion is? If a body is said to be in motion, a body is said to be in motion if it changes its position with respect to time. That means whenever a body changes its position with respect to time, then we can say that the particular body is in motion. Suppose at some instant of time is equal to 0 second, a body was at position A. After some time, suppose after 5 minutes, the body has reached to point B. So here we can clearly observe that a body changes its position from point A to point B in some particular time. So we can say that this particular body is in motion. Next one, rest. If a body does not change its position with respect to time. Suppose a body, if I am observing a body and I started to observe this body, suppose that time is equal to 0 seconds. So at that time body was at position A. After 5 seconds also the body is still at position A. After 10 seconds also the body is still at position A. So here we can say that the body is not changing its position with respect to time. So we can say that this particular body is there at rest. Now in this chapter we'll use these two terms, that is the scalar quantities and the vector quantities. So these terms must be clear to us. We can classify our quantities as scalar or as vector. So let's start with it. What is a scalar quantity and what is a vector quantity? A quantity which can be described completely by its magnitude only. If a quantity has only magnitude and no direction, then that quantity is said to be a scalar quantity. For example, length. We can say that length only has a magnitude. We are saying that suppose the length is 5 meter, 5 centimeter, 10 meter. So here we can say that this is having only magnitude. Magnitude is a numerical value. Here 5, here 10. So this length has only magnitude and no direction. In the similar way, time also has magnitude only, volume also has magnitude, area, distance, speed. In this way, number of quantities which we can have that can be completely described by its magnitude only. Next one is your vector quantities. If a quantity can be described completely by its magnitude as well as direction. If a quantity has both the things, that is magnitude as well as direction, then we can say that this particular quantity is a vector quantity. For example, force. Suppose a body is there. If I want to apply a force of 5 Newton, so this 5 is the magnitude of force and we can specify the direction of force also. If I want to move this body in this direction, so obviously I will apply a force of push in this direction. If I want to move this body in this direction, then I have to apply force from other direction. That means we can say that the force is having direction as well as magnitude. So we can say that force is an example of your vector quantities. Next one is weight. If a body is there, so obviously its weight will act in downward direction. So we can say that weight also has a direction and it always acts in downward direction. So we can say that weight is also an example of your vector quantity. In the similar way, displacement and velocity also are vector quantities. About these we'll discuss here in this same chapter. Next is distance and displacement. Now the actual length of the path travelled by a body irrespective of the direction, and that is known as distance. Now distance is basically the actual length of the path that the body is following, whereas the displacement is the shortest distance measured between initial and final positions of a body in a particular direction. Let's consider this thing with the help of an example. Suppose a body is there which starts its journey from point A, reaches to point B after covering a distance of 4 meters. Then from B to C, the same body covers a distance of 3 meters. That means initially body was at position A and finally the body reaches to position C. So we can say that the C is the final position of the body and A is the initial or the starting position of the body. So here the distance covered by the body here is 4 plus 3. So we can say that distance covered here is 3 plus 4, that is 7 meters, which is the actual length of the path that the body has followed. Whereas the displacement is the shortest path that can be measured between the initial position and the final position, whether the body has followed that path or not. So A to C, this is not the shortest path. Obviously the shortest path is this one. AC will give the value of shortest path. So we can determine the value of shortest path by using Pythagoras theorem, and it comes to be 5 meter. So we can say that displacement, here is your 5 meter. So we can say that distance is the actual length of the path followed by the body, and displacement is the shortest path between initial position and the final position. Next one, distance is a scalar quantity. Distance doesn't depend on the direction. So it is a scalar quantity, whereas displacement, it will depends on direction. So we can say that displacement will be a vector quantity. Now distance, it is always positive. If a body has covered some distance, so obviously the value of distance is always positive. But displacement can be positive, it can be negative, or it can be 0 also. Let's consider this thing with the help of an example. Suppose a body starts its journey from point A, reaches to point B after covering a distance of suppose 100 meters. Let it 200 meters. Then from B to C, covering a distance of 100 meters. So we'll try to calculate the value of distance and displacement of the body. Now first of all, we'll see the value of distance in going from A to B. In going from A to B, the value of distance will be 200 meters. And displacement will also be same. Why? Because in going from A to B, this is the shortest path only. We are not having any other shortest path other than this straight line A. Next, in going from A to C, then also the distance is 300 meter, displacement is also 300 meter. Then in going from A to C and then to B, that means in the beginning a body starts from A, reaches to point C, and then back again from C to point B. That means here we can say that initial position is A and final position is B, but this B has attained by C. So we can say that distance covered here is 200 plus 100, reaches to point C and then back again to point B, so 100 in this direction also. So total a distance of 400 meter the body has traveled here. But what about displacement? If we want to go from point A to point B, so the shortest distance is the length between A and B. So here we will not consider this thing, because in displacement we only consider the shortest path. If we have to reach to point B, so according to displacement there is no need of going to point C. So here we can say that displacement will be 200 meter. Finally, in going from A to C and then from C to A, if a body starts from A, reaches to C and then back again to point A, then distance covered 300 this side and 300 back side. So it will be 600 meter, but displacement will be 0 meter. Why it will be 0? Because of A is the initial point and finally also A is the final point. So if initial and final point are same, so displacement will be 0, because the shortest path between A and A is obviously given by 0 only. So from this we can conclude that distance and displacement can be equal. Distance is always greater than your displacement, but it can never be less than the value of displacement. So we can say that the magnitude of distance is always greater than or equal to displacement, and the magnitude of displacement is always less than or equal to the value of distance traveled. Next thing, from this we can conclude that the distance it will depend on the path followed by the moving body, whereas the displacement, it will not depend on the path followed by the moving body. Distance, here we have seen that it is always positive, but displacement, it can be positive, it can be negative, or it can be zero also, as we have shown it with the help of this example. Now let's take one numerical based on distance and displacement. Now this is a numerical of NCERT only. A farmer moves along the boundary of a square field of side 10 meter in 40 seconds. What will be the magnitude of distance and displacement of the farmer at the end of 2 minutes and 20 seconds from his initial position? Now here, now a farmer moves from along the boundary of a square field. Let us suppose that this ABCD shows the boundary of a square field such that the each side measures a 10 meter. So here the farmer takes 40 seconds to complete one round. If farmer starts from point A, and if it reaches again to point A, then it takes 40 seconds. So we have to calculate the distance covered by the farmer at the end of 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So first of all, we'll start from the total time, but time is given in minutes and second. What we want, we want that it should be in terms of second only, so we'll convert this time in seconds. So we know that 2 minutes, it will have 120 seconds plus 20, so you'll get 140 seconds. Now the number of rounds made in 40 seconds. It is clearly given that in 40 seconds farmer makes one round. So if we calculate that in 140 seconds, how many rounds the farmer will make? So from this our question will get simplified. So the number of rounds made in 40 seconds is 1. So the number of rounds made in 140 seconds will be equal to 3.5 rounds. So we can say that in a total time of 140 seconds, the farmer will complete 3.5 rounds. 3 rounds complete and last round half. So first of all, we'll calculate the distance covered by the farmer in one round. So in one round, the distance covered is 40. How it is 40? 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10. So you'll get it to be 40. So we can say that distance covered in one round is 40 meter. So obviously the distance covered in 3.5 round, you'll get it multiplying by 40. So you'll get it 140 meters. So from this we can say that distance covered by the farmer will be equal to 140 meters. But if we talk about displacement, so displacement of one complete round will be 0. How it is 0? Because the farmer has started from point A and its round will be completed when it reaches to the same point again. So here we can say that if the initial and final position is same, so the displacement will be 0. So displacement of one complete round will be 0. In the similar way, displacement of 3 complete rounds will also be 0. So what we calculate? The displacement of last half round. So after completing half round, the farmer will reach to position C. It started from point A. So the displacement is given by, displacement is the shortest path obviously. So it is given by this AC. So if this is a square field, so we can consider it as a right triangle. So this AC, it represents the hypotenuse. If we determine the value of this hypotenuse, so that will give the value of displacement. So this hypotenuse will determine using Pythagoras theorem. From that we'll get the value of AC as 10 root 2. So we can say that displacement of the farmer at the end of 140 seconds will be 10 root 2 meters. Next is uniform and non-uniform motion. Let's start with uniform motion. If a body covers equal distance in equal intervals of time. If a body covers some particular equal parts of distances in some equal intervals of time, so we can say that body is there in uniform motion. For example, let's start, suppose here time is 0 second, here time is suppose 5 second, time is equals to 10 second, time is equals to 20 second. We are observing a body after equal intervals of time. At this point, suppose the body is there at 0 meter. At this point, body has reached to 2 meter. Here the body has reached to 4 meter. Here the body has reached to 6 meter. So here we can say that in this particular time period, the body has covered a distance of 2 meter. Here also the body has covered a distance of 2 meter. Here also the body has covered a distance of 2 meter. And time span here is 5 seconds, here is also 5 seconds, and here is also 5 seconds. So we can say that. Now that the body has covered a distance, equal distance here in equal intervals of time. So we can say that here the body is there in uniform motion. And if we want to represent uniform motion graphically, so on x-axis will represent time, on y-axis will represent your distance. So this will always be a straight line. The straight line will always represent your uniform motion. It will indicate that the body has covered equal distance and equal intervals of time. Now if we talk about a few more examples from our day-to-day life, we can consider of uniform motion as the movement of hands of watches. Every hand of a watch, it covers equal distance and equal intervals of time. So we can say that the motion of hands of a watch again is an example of uniform motion. The movement of earth about its axis, or the movement of earth around sun, or the movement of different planets around sun, they all are the example of your uniform motion. Next is non-uniform motion. If a body covers unequal distances in equal intervals of time. Again we'll consider a body. Suppose at this point time is 0 second. Here it is 5 second. Here it is 10 second. Here it is 15 second, and let it be 20 second. In the beginning body was at 0 meter. Then body reaches to 3 meter, then to 9 meter, then to 10 meter, and then to 20 meter. So here we can say that time span at every part is 5 seconds. We are observing a body after every 5 seconds. But in the first 5 seconds the distance covered by the body is 3 meter. In next 5 seconds the distance covered by the body is 6 meter. In next 5 seconds the distance covered by the body is 1 meter, and here the distance covered is 10 meters. So here we can say that the body has covered unequal distances in equal intervals of time. So this is an example of your non-uniform motion. Some practical or day-to-day life examples we can consider of non-uniform motion as applying brakes to a speedy car. Suppose a car is moving with the speed of 60 meters per second. When you apply brakes, so what will happen? What will happen? Its speed will starts to reduce. So here also we can say that it will be an example of non-uniform motion. Next one, a train starting from a station. When a train starts from a station, so its speed will be less, so we can say that the train will take large time to cover small distances, and as the train leaves the station its speed increases. That means the train will starts to cover larger distance in smaller intervals of time. In the same way for oscillating simple pendulum also. So this was about your non-uniform motion. Next is speed and velocity. So let's start with speed. I think these two words we all have heard in our day-to-day life. Generally, if a vehicle is moving fast, so we can say that its speed is high. If a vehicle is moving slowly, so we can say that its speed is low. Basically, speed is used to describe the motion of a body as fast or slow. Whether the motion of a body, whether it is fast or slow, it can be easily described by its speed. So how we can define speed? So speed is the distance traveled by a body per unit time. That means in some particular time period, how much distance a body is traveling, that will define its speed. So numerically we can mention speed mathematically we can mention speed as distance traveled by the body divided by time taken. Now SI unit of speed. We know that the SI unit of distance is meter, SI unit of time is second. So obviously the speed of SI unit of speed will be meter per second. We have got two notations to write meter per second. Either we can write it as like this, or we can write meter per second like this also. Now next one, as speed it depends on distance traveled and time period. Now distance and time, they both are scalar quantities. So we can say that speed will also be a scalar quantity. Now if it is a scalar quantity and depends on distance, so we know that distance is always positive. So if distance is always positive, so we can say that speed will also be always positive. Now next we can say that throughout the journey of a body, its speed cannot be uniform. In a day-to-day life, the example of uniform motion are limited. Most of the examples are there of non-uniform motion. If we are in a car and we are going through a traffic area, so obviously the speed of a car will vary time to time. Sometimes it will increase, sometimes it's decrease. So at that time, it's not feasible to calculate speed at different instants of time. In such a situation, we'll calculate average speed. Now, how to calculate average speed? It will be calculated as total distance traveled by the body divided by total time taken. So, this was about your speed. If we talk about velocity, so velocity is the distance traveled by a body per unit time in a definite direction. Velocity will depend on direction. Whatever be the distance traveled by a body in some particular direction in some specific period of time, that will define its velocity. Now we know that distance traveled in a definite direction will be your displacement. So we can say that velocity is the displacement of a body per unit time. So mathematically we can mention velocity as displacement divided by time taken. Now displacement, SI unit of displacement is also meter and SI unit of time taken is second. So we can say that SI unit of velocity will also be meter per second. That is the SI unit of velocity, and speed will be same. We can write meter per second like this also, or we can write it like this also. Now velocity, it will depend on displacement, and we all know that displacement is a vector quantity. So we can conclude that velocity will also be a vector quantity because it is having magnitude as well as direction. Now it can be positive, negative and 0 because it depends on displacement, and we all know that displacement value, it can be positive, it can be negative, or it can be 0. So depending on the value of displacement, velocity can also be positive, negative or 0. Now if we talk about average velocity, that is in case of non-uniform motion. So obviously at that time we cannot calculate velocity, we have to calculate average velocity. Now average velocity could be calculated as initial velocity, that is the velocity in the beginning of the journey, plus the final velocity divided by 2. Initial velocity will represent by the symbol small u, final velocity will represent by the symbol v. So average velocity could be written as u plus v divided by 2. Next is numericals on speed and velocity. Now let's start with the very first numerical, that is the odometer of a car reads 2000 km at the start of a trip and 2400 km at the end of the trip. If the trip took 8 hours, calculate the average speed of the car in km per hour and meter per second. That means here odometer of a car. What basically the odometer is? Odometer is a device which is used to measure distance covered, and speedometer is a device which is used to measure speed of a vehicle. So if a odometer reads this in the start of a trip and this at the end of the trip, so we can say that the distance traveled during the complete trip is given by 2400 minus 2000. So what you will get? 400 kilometer. Now if the trip took 8 hours, the time taken during the whole trip is 8 hours. So we have to calculate the average speed both in kilometer per hour and meter per second. So what is the formula for calculating average speed? It is total distance divided by total time. Now first we'll calculate it in kilometer per hour. For calculating average speed in kilometer per hour, we want distance in terms of kilometer, time in terms of hour. So it is in kilometer, it is in hour. We'll substitute the values and we'll get our answer in kilometer per hour. Second one, for calculating average speed in meter per second. So if it is 50 km per hour, so we'll convert same in meter per second. Now how to convert it in meter per second? It is kilometer per hour. So in 1 kilometer, how many meters we have? 1000 divided by hour. In 1 hour, how many seconds we have? 3600 seconds. So on multiplying 50 with 1000 divided by 3600, you'll get your answer in meter per second. So from this we can say that the average speed in kilometer per hour will be 50 kilometer per hour, and in meter per second it will be 13.9 meter per second. Next is Usha swims in a 90 meter long pool. She covers 180 meter in 1 minute by swimming from one end to the other and back along the same straight path. Find the average speed and average velocity of Usha. A swimming pool is given. Suppose this is the length of a swimming pool, which is 90 meters long. Usha covers 180 meter in 1 minute. Now how she covers? If she starts from this point, so she covers 90 meters in this direction and then 90 meters again in this direction. That means if Usha starts from point A, so after covering 180 meter, she again reaches to the same point A. So here we have to calculate average speed and average velocity of Usha. Now total time here is given as 1 minute. Now we know that speed, SI unit of speed and velocity is meter per second. So for that we need our time to be in seconds. Now we'll convert 1 minute in seconds. Next is distance covered by Usha in 1 minute. It is clearly given that in 1 minute Usha covers a distance of 180 meter. Next is displacement. Why we require displacement? Because for calculating average speed we want total distance divided by total time. So distance we have calculated as 180 meter and is clearly given in the question also. Time is 60 seconds. So on substituting the values you will get your answer to be 3 meter per second. But here we have to calculate velocity also. For velocity what we want? Displacement and time. Time is given here, but we have to calculate the value of displacement also. Now displacement of Usha in 1 minute, it will be 0. Now why it is 0? Because Usha starts from point A, covers 90 meter in this direction and then back again also 90 meter and reaches to the same point. If initial and final point of Usha are same, so we can say that displacement here of Usha will be 0. So on substituting the values, you will get your answer to be 0. So here we can say that average speed will be 3 meter per second and average velocity will be 0 meter per second. Now next is acceleration, the rate of change of velocity of a body with respect to time. We can say that throughout a complete motion, we cannot say that the velocity of a body is uniform. So whenever the velocity of a body changes, so we can say that the rate at which the velocity of a body will change with respect to time, that will define its acceleration. Now acceleration could be is represented by the symbol A, and mathematically it could be written as change in velocity divided by time taken. Now how you can represent change in velocity? If we know the final value of velocity or the initial value of velocity, so we can easily calculate change in velocity by subtracting initial velocity from final velocity. That is, final velocity minus initial velocity divided by time taken will give you the value of acceleration. Now final velocity is represented by v, initial velocity is represented by u. So we can say that a is equals to v minus u by t. Now next is the SI unit of acceleration. Now acceleration could be written as change in velocity divided by time taken. Now we know that the SI unit of velocity is meter per second and for time it is second. So from this we get that SI unit of acceleration will be meter per second square. Either we can write it like this or like this also. These two are basically the notation for representing meter per second square. Next we can have types of acceleration. We can basically categorize acceleration as of two types. One is positive acceleration, the next one is negative acceleration. Now what basically the positive acceleration is? If the velocity of a body increases with time. We know that whenever the velocity of a body will change means it can increase also, it can decrease also, so that will define its acceleration. So when the velocity of a body increases with time, so we can say that it will be positive acceleration, and positive acceleration is generally known as acceleration only. Next one is negative acceleration. If the velocity of a body decreases with time, then it is said to have negative acceleration, and negative acceleration is also known as retardation. Now let's consider example of positive acceleration. Suppose you start your bicycle from rest. So in the beginning your velocity is 0. When you start to pedal your bicycle, then what happened? The velocity starts to increase slowly. So at that time we can say that you are in positive acceleration. If you are moving, suppose you are moving with some specific velocity, and if you apply brakes, so on the application of brakes, what will happen? Your velocity will starts to decrease and finally comes to rest. So at that time we can say that it will be your retardation. We can categorize acceleration as zero acceleration also. Zero acceleration. Now when you will say that the acceleration is zero, when the change in velocity is zero, when velocity of a body is not changing with respect to time, at that time we can say that it will have zero acceleration. We can have acceleration as uniform also and non-uniform also. As we have discussed about uniform motion and non-uniform motion, in the similar way we can have acceleration as uniform acceleration and non-uniform acceleration also. So how you can define uniform acceleration? If the velocity of a body changes by equal amount in equal intervals of time, then it will be your uniform acceleration, and if the velocity of a body changes by unequal amount in equal intervals of time, then it will be your non-uniform acceleration. Next is numerical based on acceleration. Starting from a stationary position, Rahul pedals his bicycle to attain a velocity of 6 meters per second in 30 seconds. That means starting from a rest. We have to consider that whenever we come across the word starting or rest, that means we are talking that the velocity of a body will be 0. If a body starts from 0, so its initial velocity will be 0. If a body finally at rest, so its final velocity will be 0. So here it is clearly given that starting from a stationary position. If Rahul starts from rest, so we can say that the initial velocity of Rahul will be 0. Rahul pedals his bicycle to attain a velocity of 6 meters per second in 30 seconds. So if initial velocity is 0, so we can say that final velocity will be 6 meters per second. Now after attaining this velocity, Rahul applies brakes such that the velocity of a bicycle comes down to 4 meters per second. Rahul was moving with 6 meters per second. On the application of brakes, the velocity reduces to 4 meters per second. Now we have to calculate the acceleration of bicycle in both the cases. Both the cases means first case when it starts from rest, and second case when Rahul applies brakes. So let's start from very first case. I have explained you that why the initial velocity is 0, final velocity is 6 meters per second, time taken is 30 seconds. So we can say that acceleration, we know the formula for acceleration, it is v minus u by t, that is change in velocity divided by time taken. On substituting the values here, you will get your answer to be 0.2, and SI naught of acceleration is meter per second square. So in first case we can say that acceleration is 0.2 meter per second square. Now if we talk about second case, in second case in the beginning the Rahul was moving with the velocity of 6 meter per second. So this 6 meter per second will be the initial velocity for your second case. When Rahul applies brakes, so velocity reduces to 4 meters per second. So we can say that final velocity here it will be 4 meters per second. By mistake I have written 0 here, but final velocity is 4 meters per second because Rahul was moving with the velocity of 6 meters per second. And on the application of brakes, his velocity reduces to 4 meters per second. So initial velocity will be 6 meters per second and final velocity will be 4 meters per second. Now time taken for this change is 5 seconds. Now we know that acceleration is given by change in velocity divided by time taken. So we'll substitute these values here. Final velocity is 4 minus initial velocity is 6. On solving it, you'll get it to be minus 2 by 5. So we can say that acceleration for second case it will be minus 0.4 meter per second square. Now one thing here I just forgot to tell you that positive acceleration is always represented by a positive sign and retardation or negative acceleration is always represented by a negative sign. Here in this example we can observe that here it is positive, so we can say that it will be positive acceleration, but here it is negative, so it is your. Now remaining topics of the chapter will take in part 2. I hope that all the topics explained by me here are clear to you. Thank you.